Hello and happy Monday. So yesterday, something interesting happened. So my family and I decided to go out for my husband's birthday, and we went to a restaurant, and the service was very interesting. So there were some service there that gave excellent service and some that gave horrible service. And it got us in a conversation around customer service. A couple of things that struck me that I felt like I'm going to put the questions aside and just sort of address the idea of what creates good customer service. So let's start with the person that's actually providing the service. We tend to automatically blame the person that's providing the service by saying, well, they're providing horrible customer service. But if we go down to the root cause of this, there's a couple of factors. When you have a bad hire, for example, it becomes very difficult to provide the quality of service if you haven't hired correctly. So that's one. Are you hiring people that have the same core values as your institution? Are you hiring people that care about your customers, about your company, about the service? So that's one aspect of it. But let's go even further back before we get to the hiring process. Are you creating an environment that lives up to those core values, that people know that they're safe in your organization, that they're treated well? That is the root cause of good customer service. It's not just that person that's in front of your customer, but it's how you treat your employee. When you treat your employees with respect, when you treat them with the core values that you say that your company has, they will do the same for your customers. When you hire the right people that believe in your core values, it really is that simple. Your first customer as an organization are the employees that work in your organization. If you treat them well, it allows them to be able to treat your customers well. It is their responsibility to treat the customers well, but it's your responsibility to treat them well. So that's step one. Two, sometimes they're difficult customers that come into your establishment. And I love the idea of how can you turn that customer complaint into a positive experience. So a customer has a bad situation. How do you, as the manager, as the leader of the organization, turn that around for them? But more importantly, how do you have your employees do that? Have you empowered your employees to have the ability to be able to turn around a negative experience at your establishment? Do they have the ability to be able to rectify a customer's situation, or do they have to run to management in order to make that happen? And if it's the latter, they have to run the management to make that happen. What kind of culture are you really creating? Are you creating a culture where people can actually problem solve? Are you giving people the latitude and the ability to be able to think critically about the customer experience and how they can support that customer experience? If not, you are not going to be able to turn customer complaints into customer compliments, because it's not just about running to get the manager. It's about how can I solve the problem for that customer immediately. And we've got plenty of examples of companies that do that well, but we have many, many more examples of customer experiences and companies that do it horribly wrong. So just a bit of a recap on the entire experience. So reflect back, you as a leader of your organization. Are you allowing your employees to be able to think critically, to be able to solve problems? Are you creating an environment for your employees that they know that you care about them, that they have safety psychologically and physically in your organization to be able to do the work that they need to do? Do they feel like you actually care about them as individuals? You care about their families. You care about who they are as people, and you want them to actually be able to go back to their families feeling good about putting in a day's work with your organization. And if you are doing this, have you hired the right people to be able to then impart that experience to your customer to create a really good customer experience? So a lot of these are two-way streets, is really what I'm saying to you. There are times where an organization does an amazing job at creating an environment for their employees to provide good customer service, but they haven't hired wisely, and that person does not provide good customer service. But before I say to you, hey, just get rid of that person, think about it. Have you trained them? Have you given them the tools and the resources to be able to do a good job? And if you haven't, what are you going to do about that? How are you going to rectify that to change the customer experience? Now, the other piece of this puzzle, which is equally important, is as an organization, are you willing to stand up for your employees? Listen, there's some bad customers out there. Let's just be honest. And this adage that the customer is always right is not good for business at all, because customers can come in and abuse your employees. And if your employees don't feel safe to know that you will stand up for them because you know that they live the values of your organization, and if you just blanketly take the word of your customer because you're afraid of them posting on Instagram or X or TikTok or whatever modality of social media that's out there for your customers, if you're so afraid that that's the route that you're willing to take, then you've got a bigger problem, because the customer is not always right. The customer is the customer, and the customer experience will only be good if you have an environment in your organization where people feel safe to problem solve, but also feel safe to be able to say to a customer that what they're doing is inappropriate and their dollars are not welcome here. I mean, it's just that simple. Now, another thing that I want to address, because we did have a very bad customer experience at the restaurant we were at, is the idea that when you have a bad customer experience and the customer hasn't done anything inappropriate, the customer is actually trying to help the server, which we were and some other people were. What do you as a manager then do about that when you realize that the onus is really on you to fix the experience? Do you just kind of go, oh, well, it is what it is, and then expect everyone to tip? Here's my philosophy on tipping. It's an important philosophy. I will tip very generously for mediocre service. I really will. I will tip even more generously for great service, but I will not tip for bad service. I will not tip after being disrespected. Like, I won't do that. And this idea that we have to tip for everything all the time is a false narrative. The truth is, the tip is supposed to be for good service. I'm not even saying excellent service. I'm saying good service. And as I said, I'll tip for mediocre service, and I will tip well because I know how hard it is for people to work, for example, in a service industry, how hard they do work, and how sometimes someone can have an off day. But I will not tip well if it's just blatantly bad, disrespectful service. I just won't do it. I will leave a very bad tip. I will still leave a tip, but I will leave a bad tip. I am that person that will do that. I will be very honest with that. Even though I know that part of the problem is actually the company culture. But even in bad company cultures, they're good actors. And so while it is the company culture that creates some bad behavior, it can't be used as an excuse. You still have to provide good service. You still have to be able to do your job well, even if you're in a bad environment. You still have to know, if you are a good worker, to rise above. And we saw some great workers do that. And I'll give you a little bit of a hint. I'm that person that will go back to a restaurant and give somebody else's table a good tip if I see that they have done an excellent job, even in a bad environment. I've done that before where my server was not that great, but I watched another server be really excellent. I will actually give them that tip because I think it's important to honor the work that people do. So what am I leaving you with? What's the conclusion here? One, we have to change company cultures so that the company takes care of their employees so that the employees can take care of the customer. That is what excellent customer service is about. How do we make sure that companies understand that the values that they espouse should not just be values that are on a wall, but living values that people can actually work and use those values to be their North Star when it comes to behavior. So that's point one. Point two is, how do we make sure we hire the right people? Because I can have a great culture, but a bad hire can destroy my culture. So how do I make sure that I hire people that are going to be effective at the work that they do, but more importantly, are a match for the culture that I as a business owner am trying to build, or I as a manager of a team is trying to build. Three, and three is equally important, is that as an employee, how do I make sure that even if the company is not living up to the values, that I am living up to the values and my work shows my integrity and shows my commitment to myself as well as to an organization, even if that organization is not showing me that commitment. And then the final point, which I think is an important point, we've gotten to a point where we walk into situations and we don't speak up. I've been guilty of it. I'm sure all of you watching me have been guilty of it. We have to begin to speak up. When we see someone being abused, we have to speak up. When we see someone doing an excellent job and a good job, we have to speak up. When we see that this person is in a situation that is not safe, we as customers need to speak up, because companies will not put their dollars into making sure that their employees are well taken care of, have psychological safety, are developed in their work and their jobs, until we, their customers who put dollars on the table, use our dollars wisely and use our voices wisely to protect the employees, because those employees are your family members. They are the people that you know. So we as consumers need to start holding companies at a high excellence. So I hope you have a great Monday and a happy, happy holiday if you are in the States. And if you are in Canada, tomorrow is actually Canada Day. Have a beautiful Canada Day. And the 4th is Independence Day for those in the States. Happy Independence Day. See you next Monday, same time.